Hi, everybody. Today we look at a very interesting topic within youth sport. At the start of this conference, Kevin Till started with a very important question: is how appropriate and healthy are talent identification and development systems? I think this is a very good question. Within the Netherlands, we also have this discussions, and it focuses on how to create the best learning environment to talented athletes. So I'm very proud and glad that I can introduce my colleague, Kayan, who will take us to the presentation of a talented athlete in a learning environment. And Kayan has been working for NOC-NSF since 2009, where he started as project leader for the implementation of the master plan talent development that was created in 2006. Since 2018, he is the performance manager talent development within Team NL. In this role, he works as an advisor for 12 development programs for different sports. This means that he is at the programs on a daily basis and has a lot of contacts with the talent coaches and technical directors to discuss how the program continually can be improved. Next to this, he is responsible for the talent development policy within NOC-NSF and making sure the different units are all aligned. He has a master's degree in business administration and a master's degree in public administration. So Kayan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nicolette. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's always question one, of course. I'm going to
hear and see you.
Share my screen as well. Yes, I think it's working. Thanks for having me. As Nicolette told you, I work in the elite sports area, and the story or the presentation that I'm going to give is focused and from that perspective, from talent development in function of elite sports. And what I wanted to do today is take you on a journey of creating a learning environment for talented athletes. And it's going to be a little bit of a personal journey as well, because this journey started for me in 2009 when my girlfriend started as a PE teacher at an elementary school in Rotterdam. And this school was not located in a prize-winning neighborhood in Rotterdam and had not received any prizes at all. It did receive several warnings from the Ministry of Education due to the quality of their education. And another problem was that the number of children applying to the school was declining each year, and it wasn't a big elementary school to begin with. It even started to raise questions about the necessity of that school in that neighborhood. I did not really understand why my girlfriend wanted to join that school, but I'm very proud that she did. She wasn't the only new member of staff that year. A new director was appointed and also a few new teachers. I, of course, only followed the development from a distance. From that perspective, it was difficult to be as enthusiastic as my girlfriend because I could not feel or see what she was experiencing on a day-to-day basis. I couldn't see any hard data on the outcomes of the course they were sailing. One thing that did trigger me was the notion that the staff started with a lot of talking to create a very clear and joint vision about teaching, development, and the culture of the school that they wanted to create. After this was formulated, and it took a while to create this clear joint vision, the staff continued their daily talks, but now made the transfer from their vision to their daily operations and back. After a few years, I was invited to join them on a school camp, of course, always because of the lack of male teachers, unfortunately. I now got to experience the improvements myself. Even during the camp, the staff had created a culture and a way of working in which it was not more than normal that they talked about the individual kids, their development, and the environment that they wanted to create during the school camp. I was automatically a part of these discussions, and which made it very easy for me to fulfill my part. They created a culture in which the entire staff was working together, was paying attention to all the kids, even if they weren't in their class. We're making sure softer topics as social safety, personal development, carefulness were all discussed on a daily basis. This not only resulted in a shared responsibility and even vulnerability by the teaching staff, but also in children that are having fun, pushing and finding their own limits of what they can do, and children helping each other during those quests. I was amazed. I was really amazed, and I got inspired what I experienced. The hard outcomes came after a couple of years. And as you could predict, the school wasn't receiving warnings anymore, but compliments about the quality of the educational system. The school started growing in applications and eventually even had to put a stop in applications due to the lack of space. In the beginning, I was listening a lot, of course, about what was happening, but wasn't able to transfer the ideas and insights to my line of work. It might have sounded too common even, what they were doing. I thought that we were already doing the same thing. In talent development, in function of elite sports, we live by the expression that we want to have the best athletes working with the best coaches in the best programs. This expression is basically what drives us each day and the foundation of most of the discussions that we have with technical directors and coaches to improve our programs. What we did not notice, or what we did notice in these discussions, was that this expression was formulated from an elite sport perspective. We felt that, although still applicable, to improve the discussions within our area of talent development, we needed to translate it to an expression with a little better focus on our line of work, meaning we want to have the most talented athletes and the best talent coaches working in the best development programs. It might seem a little bit semantical, but this little change in expression helps a lot in the discussion with federations and helps a lot in the focus of our work. For instance, the word best didn't have the unwanted outcome of selecting the best athletes of a certain age category anymore. It didn't put too much emphasis on performance on youth events anymore. We can now talk directly about potential, what this means, how we can translate this to practice. After we had done this for a couple of years, we came to the conclusion that we are getting better in the distinction between the best athletes and the most talented athletes. We found and are still finding more objective facts about what differentiates promising athletes from not so promising athletes, and also how we can optimize the decision-making process in which we come to conclusions about the development of athletes. We also found that we are having better discussions about the importance of a talent coach, what their competencies should be like, how we can develop, honor, and appreciate this line of work. We are not looking for the best coaches in development programs. This is a statement I hear frequently. No, we are looking for and developing the best talent coaches in the best development programs. This is still very hard because it's not common yet for coaches also in the Netherlands to develop themselves as talent coaches. But in our communication and financing principles, we are trying to put this function next to an elite sport coach and not as a stepping stone toward becoming an elite sports coach. We also found that we are getting better in what it entails to create a benchmark development program on the hard figures, that is, which means we have a better understanding and view of what development programs in and outside the Netherlands are doing, how we can translate this to our context. For example, the amount of hours they are training, the staff and qualities of the staff that are involved in the programs. We will never copy paste, but try to transfer the insights to our specific context. Thus, we thought we were driving, controlling, and pushing the right buttons to improve development programs. We had the key issues in place. But after a while in my current job as a performance manager for talent development, it struck me when I was walking around in the development programs. Talking about hard figures around athletes, competencies of talent coaches and the program isn't anything new. But talking about the softer facts, like the exact way a talent coach gives feedback and the influence this feedback has on the environment of the program. Doing this on a daily basis to make sure that it's becoming a part of our shared DNA is new. We made the mistake that we thought that the environment will automatically take the right form and shape by controlling these three buttons. But this isn't something that just happens. This is something that we have to create and pay attention to every single day. We need to create an environment in which people can develop in an optimal way. And we call this environment a learning environment, not just for athletes, but for everyone involved in and around the program. To create a learning environment and light the discussions within the programs, we felt we should start by creating an image of what a learning environment should look like. We did and are still doing this by getting coaches, technical directors, and experts together and challenging them to come up with statements around observable behavior and attitude that is necessary from the people in and around the program. Put in other words, if I or you would come to visit the program, what do we want you to see? What do we want you to experience? All the complexities surrounding themes as social safety, development, carefulness, motivation need to be discussed and be taken from the gray area and put into the light. We don't have to have long discussions about if it's right or wrong to hit an athlete as a coach, I hope. But we do need to have discussions about what is strict, what is mean, when does strict become mean? We do need to have discussions about how we can challenge athletes so they can push their own boundaries without stepping over the line. We do need to have discussions about where that line is. We need to have discussions about what is success and how do we celebrate success. We need to have discussions about when is something a joke and when does joking become bullying. By challenging federations and talking about these complex topics, the wheel can start turning. It's just the beginning. They have to create their own clearer vision on these complexities so that they can form their own dictionary from which again improvement can start taking place. Experts need to be involved to help us really comprehend some of these complex topics and translate them to our context of development in function of elite sport. Eventually, this will not only help in the discussions, but also help in our own behavior and how we want to deal with these situations once or even before we are confronted by them. For this to happen, everyone has to be informed and on board. I noticed when one of the federations that I'm involved in, that the new coach was shaking the tree. This had a major impact on staff members and athletes, because there wasn't a clear and outspoken picture of the complexities I mentioned earlier. Everyone forming their own opinions about what is going on, based on their own beliefs. This is detrimental for the creation of a learning environment. In this case, it is not about whose beliefs are right or wrong. It's about the fundamental fact that we have to not create a clear and joint vision on right or wrong, and what we can contribute and help each other to improve. They have to create their own compass, which can help them decide their jointly formed course and help them stay on course. To help federation in deciding this course, we have created an instrument for federations that can assist technical directors and coaches. This tool is nothing more than a starting point for their conversations and journey to tackle the complexity surrounding the creation of a learning environment. Next to this goal, the tool can also serve as an instrument for continual improvement. We used it a couple of years ago with our performance centers by translating the observable behavior, like I mentioned in the sheet. These are just some examples. But by translating these behaviors to questions for parents, athletes, coaches, staff, and other stakeholders. For every behavior that we wanted to see in the ideal learning environment, we asked them to what extent they were seeing and experiencing this. This gave very interesting insights from and between all different perspectives. You could have statements where all the parties involved agreed upon seeing, or where parties significantly had different views. These differences and behaviors that were not seen then became the starting point for a discussion with the same target audiences. Again, with the parents, athlete, coaches, and staff. During those sessions, they were informed about the results of the survey and the points of attention. And then the discussion started again. Do we have the same understanding of what we want to see? Why aren't we seeing this behavior? Why is there a difference in perspective? And most importantly, how can we solve this? Ultimately, these discussions have to lead to concrete action points. The more concrete, the better. We have to prevent it becoming a far from our bed show with statements that hold too many room for own interpretations. The outcome should also not only contain attention points for the federation or for our coach, it should entail points for everyone involved. Again, athletes, coaches, parents, and staff. A learning environment is not owned by one party, but by all the parties involved. To sum up, to create a joint vision on and continually improve a learning environment, we need to organize talks, and become as concrete as possible so that it can become a part of our DNA and of everyone that is involved in the program. Just as talking about technical or tactical aspects is part of our DNA in talent development and elite sport, so should this. This isn't done overnight, don't get me wrong. It takes a long time and a lot of talks, but the end result will optimize the development of our talented athletes in what I feel a much bigger way than another discussion about the perfect grip on your tennis racket. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Kayan, for this nice presentations and your personal insights. It's all about working together and have a shared vision. I saw there was a question in the audience. Kayan, how did you go about developing, supporting coaches to develop the soft skills?
By getting experts, let's say psychological experts, psychosocial experts, pedagogical experts next to the coaches on the field when they're training, observing the training and giving direct feedback to coaches on what they were seeing and what they were doing.
Did you ask them requirements for their coaching?
And what do you mean by that question?
Did you ask the need of competencies within the soft skill before you assign them as a talent coach?
No, but that's an issue that we're having. We have a list of competencies that we feel that are necessary for a talent coach to have. But the reality is that we are not yet in Holland developing these talent coaches. So what we need to do is assign someone in that function and then develop his competencies towards the competencies that we feel are necessary.
You also said that there's a difference between the talent coach and the coach. In your opinion, what's the main difference between those coaches?
It's their the athletes that they have and that they're working with. In Holland, we always say we've got 4 pillars. That's coaching, training, managing, and well, I forgot even the 4th one now. But in headlines, it's quite the same skills. You need to have communication skills to communicate with athletes, but the communication towards a younger target audience is completely different towards a 12-year-old than a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old. So it's the nuances that make the difference. And those nuances need to be tackled and need to be talked about.
Okay, thank you. I have a last question for you. That's from Afonso. He said, that sounds like great vision, but how do you isolate some of the profitable expectations of success for those talents from their respective sports federations or professional clubs?
Wow, that's a long question. So that needs to be repeated for me.
He said you had a great vision. How do you isolate some of the profitable expectations of success for those talents from their respective sports federations or professional clubs?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If I'm getting it correctly, a really good question. we get athletes in our, let's say, our programs, when we call it talent development, around the age of 14, 15, 16 years old. Before they come into the program, we normally have 1 or 2 years where we introduce the athletes and parents to the program and what it means and what it entails. And we already take them on the journey of where they are, let's say, assigning to. And in that period of time, so before they enter the program, we are already having these discussions and talks with the parents and the athletes to make sure that there's an optimal match between what we can deliver and what, of course, the goals are of the program, and that they match the goals of the kid or athlete in this case. So that's where we want to make the match between the program and the athlete.
Thank you.
I hope that answers the question.
I hope so too. I see it's almost time. Thank you very much, Kayan. It's always a pleasure to work with you. And we see that the talent development especially asks to see the kids behind the athletes. So it's kids first, I always say.
Yeah.